What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your week in review for February 3rd, 2020. And this week was a kind of interesting week. It was a little bit slow. We don't have any patches this week. The roadmap updates were quite slow, but we did have a few video updates that were pretty interesting to go over. So starting out where we normally would be with patch notes, but instead we had a This Week in Star Citizen just after I posted the last week's week in review, and I found something interesting in there. There's a player relations update on there. I don't know if these have ever been there before, but this is the first time I've ever seen it, and it was kind of saying, hey, we know there's a new influx of players to this game. These are all the known issues, where you can report them, how you can be a part of the project. These are issues that we know about, so don't worry about those. We're working on them, and so on. I thought it was really nice to see. It was very good communication. These are things that I really wish we saw in our video updates more often. I feel like our video content is so good for Star Citizen, but is lacking so much at the same time. It's a interesting thing. I hope this year we get some actual player and video interaction rather than just questions about what's going to happen with the game. A little bit more insight of what's happening with the game currently would be really cool. But this is like kind of a really good step towards that. I just one day would like to see that in the video content. It'd be pretty sweet. Moving on to roadmap updates, we did get a roadmap roundup. We had some changes, but they were pretty minor. So Bounty Hunter armor came off of the roadmap until true Bounty Hunter gameplay comes in. We are going to see some Bounty Hunter updates in 3.9, but these are not the end game of bounty hunting for Star Citizen. I don't know what the plans are necessarily for the future, but these are just the temporary kind of smaller iterations towards making bounty hunting great. But for right now, they don't feel that it's worth the effort doing bounty hunting armor. I can't speak until they have really good bounty hunting gameplay. And then another thing that I found really interesting is the Hull C went complete on the Squadron 42 roadmap. And it's very important that it went complete on the Squadron 42 roadmap. That doesn't mean necessarily that the Hull C is just going to pop up out of nowhere in 3.9 and we're just going to be trading, a ton of goods all over the place with this really awesome ship that I definitely have and really want to use. But I think it's more of a reality that you're going to see it in Squadron 42, but not necessarily use it. So the exterior LODs and things like that, optimizations, right, have been done to the Hull C to make it useful in Squadron 42 rather than used in the PU. Moving on to video updates, this is where most of the meat of the news was from this week, and we had an Inside Star Citizen. And the first segment is more showing what a producer does. And it's a nice little inside look. These are the people that organize what we get every year. These are the people that decide who works on what and what are priorities in a lot of cases. And it was a nice little inside look, but I do take some issue with a little bit of this. It was a bit vague, and it didn't provide me with a ton of information to grab and discuss with you guys. Other than this.
Planning Week is a global alignment of all teams and studios within CIG.
All of the producers and teams sort of collaborate and see what's deliverable for the quarter.
During Planning Week, you tend to talk to everyone.
There's no other time where producers from separate teams are really going to come together and compare their schedules.
I find it really interesting that the fact that the only time that all the people get together is during this planning week at the beginning of the year. I think it's very clear that this is why we get huge roadmap changes, because there's not a lot of communication that goes on between these people during the year. And this is something that I don't know if it's possible to resolve, because it probably would waste more time than necessary. But this is definitely one of the blockers for their communication to us, right? Where internally everything's probably going as well as it can, given all the studios and different time zones and all things like that. But when it comes to the communication to us, it makes it pretty difficult for one person or a couple people to put together a roadmap and say, this is what to expect this year, because it's very difficult to tell if nobody's communicating with each other that often. So I think that's why we got a pretty big roadmap change recently, because they're finally talking to each other. And then we get an update on the progress and struggles made by the character art team about creating the people that are going to live on the Horizon landing zone on Crusader. And this is with Jay Lee, and he's obviously a community favorite.
So we were kind of sticking to a little bit of bomber pilots and just World War II references, and we're like, we don't have that in the game, but I'm gonna give it a shot. And we threw it out just to Chris and all the directors to see what they think, and Chris was like, no. I was like, okay. And so we did another key art, which is the civilians. And Chris responded to these actually pretty well. And I was super stoked, super excited. And then I showed the next image when I showed the 50s one, and he's like, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm thinking. Chris was like, yeah, we should go a little bit more on the sleek route.
A lot of people call CR a dictator and a micromanager, but we would never know unless we work there in reality. Now, I see a lot of people in my Discord and on Twitter complaining about how much CR oversees things like these. But this is his game, and if you were in his position, what would be the most important thing for you of the vision of what you had for the game? Obviously, gameplay is really important, but it's also how it looks. So CR having like the say in what the people that are going to live on Crusader, how they look, how they dress, fitting his vision, that totally makes sense. Why wouldn't you have that? So I don't get what the complaining is coming from necessarily. If you really think of it that way, it's like, that's kind of a necessity. Maybe micromanaging like tiny little things like props and stuff might be an issue, but the way, the overarching look of what a planet's theme is going to be, an entire planet's theme, yeah, like CR should be overseeing that. And this time, Jeremiah did a little bit of something different than they've done in the past for their character concept art, and they called it key art.
Chris's response to these were actually really good. He was saying that this looks very high tech, it's got that uniform look. The thing after we showed him this was, I wanted to kind of do something new. I wanted to do some key art. I wanted to show these characters that we've concepted in situ. Like, what would they actually look like when they're walking around and not just standing still? And that really helped, myself included, and Chris, to really see what potentially these people, these living and breathing people, would feel like in Horizon.
And this is much easier for me, and more importantly, the artist, to see how these characters look in the environments that they're meant to live in. Does it fit? Does it feel right? And if it makes sense. And it probably is more helpful for someone like CR to see, yeah, that looks really good. And yeah, so moving on, we have a Star Citizen Live this week. And this one was on Theaters of War. And if you haven't caught our most recent weekend review, oh my goodness, Answer the Call, we did it specifically on Theaters of War, and we discussed the subject of, is it a waste of time or not? And I think we had a lot of really good discussions, and especially the last caller was really good. So make sure you guys check out that video. So before we get into the meat of this video, I think it makes sense that Sean explain what Theaters of War is and what it means to Star Citizen in case you don't know what it is.
Basically, if you could decide on the best 30 minutes of a PU experience where you could jump in and it was immediate combat, what would that look like? To kind of progress on Star Marine or Arena Commander, it really doesn't make a ton of sense to continue to progress in just sort of isolated bits. It makes a lot of sense to put it all together and again, make it a lot more like what the PU experience vision will be. Because this kind of combat, and again, if you've seen the videos and stuff like this, we expect to get to this level of interaction between players and everything in the PU, but when we get there, it's got to be fun. It can't be, great, we've got 1,000 people in the server now, all this combat is happening, and oh my goodness, Cutlass is overpowered, or this weapon takes down a ship, like an FPS weapon, or, if you hit a ship with the knife, the ship goes flying off because of physics or anything. So basically, it's got to be fun when we get there, and there's no reason to wait. but there's a whole part of Star Citizen that would make entire games all by itself that needs to be balanced, analytically tuned, and played a lot.
For me, I'm not 100% sold that Theaters of War is the answer to fix combat in Star Citizen and in the PU. We've heard this song before. We've heard it with Star Marine. We've heard it with Arena Commander that, oh, this is going to be the test bed where we learn how to do everything. But then why do we need Theaters of War already if those two should have done a better job being a test bed? And they weren't. So I think the real saving grace here is Sean Tracy. I have more faith in him than I have in many of the people that come on camera for this project, as he just tells it like it is. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. There's no marketing speak. And for the first question about desync and latency issues, SCL gives him an opportunity to do just that.
About the 2.0 timeframe, we had upwards of a 500 millisecond delay. Then in 3.0, one of our gameplay programmers, coupled with one of our network engineers, this is Gordon and Jens, reduced this down to 250 milliseconds. And that amount of time is a lot. Yeah. And it's when you're talking about, again, the immediate sort of feedback of a shot or throwing a grenade or something like this. So we were sitting at the 250 millisecond delay at CitizenCon. So having said that, the first thing we did when we got back is that one of the same network engineer actually went to go look at the upstream refactoring. This is actually on the roadmap, and we've been working on this for a little while. So what it does do is that it massively benefits a server that is running at a high frame rate now. So what we've done is that he's reworked the way the upstream stuff works, so that's when you're sending up to the server. And when the server's running at a decent frame rate, 30 plus anyways, that latency is going to be much, much less. So you're going to feel really good responsiveness there. However, it won't really help the PU massively yet, just because the server frame rates need to go higher, right? And as server OCS is rolling out, that should be helping that. And when it rolls out altogether, Arena Commander is going to feel better. Star Marine is going to feel better. PU is going to feel better. Everything is going to be much more responsive, and we've already got that work. Not completely done. It's not super tuned, but we've already put all this stuff in. So the next release should actually have a bunch of this in it.
So through this mode, they have already made significant progress to bring some of the network issues that we've been dealing with for a very long time up to the standards of many other FPS games, and that's exciting. He also seems pretty confident on when we would be seeing Theaters of War.
When you say the next release, you
3.9.
3.9?
Yeah, I want to be sure about that.
Yeah,
I'm going to say
that's
3.9, but it's also sitting in a branch right now, so it's not yet in the main branch. When Theaters goes into their hands, they're going to have it.
Now, that gets quickly gobbled up by the marketing speak of Jared, and it looks like we might be getting this in 3.9. He seems relatively confident. I really don't pay much attention to dates and all that stuff anymore. I pay a lot less attention to the roadmap than I used to, other than for this video. So we'll have to see, but he seems sort of confident. And the last clip gives some insight into another aspect of theaters that should help our PU experience be a lot better.
And I want to add that one of the additional ways that Theaters of War is helping development for the PU is work on the upcoming group interface and the friend systems. Yeah. And we don't want to talk about too much of that because you're going to hear about that on ISC next week. Yeah.
Group system improvements are a massive need in the PU, and obviously they're very important in something like Theaters of War. So I hope this translates into the PU as quickly as possible, if not immediately in 3.9. And then moving on to our miscellaneous updates at the end of the video, we had 2 sneak peeks this week. One of them was a Flair sneak peek. Some cool additions to the game with, yes, pun intended, some bubble jackets, so you can look like the coolest kids in my high school in the early 2000s. There's also a sneak peek of what looks like a jail auto turret for the jails coming in 3.9. Also, if you didn't know and you have an Apollo, your loaner has now been updated to a Cutlass Red. And if you're interested in a lot of like the lore and Galactopedia kind of stuff, there are new articles posted on the Galactopedia. I'm really interested in the ice mining one. I'm kind of curious what that's all about, so we're going to look into that as soon as possible. And guys, I know it was a little bit of a short one, but that's going to do it for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like on it, leave a comment below on anything we discussed today, and hit that subscribe button for more weeks in review. and I will see you guys next time. Keep an eye out. I hope in the next couple days to have the start of my Let's Play series come out, but I have this little obsession with a new video game called Eco that I'm playing with my community. So I'm going to do my best to sneak in some editing time, probably later in the evenings, and try and make those videos come out pretty consistently. I'm aiming for 2 videos a week and hoping for 3. So looking for like Wednesdays and Fridays, I think, for those videos. So hopefully we have like a good spread throughout the week for those. So again, hit subscribe, maybe see those videos later in the week, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everyone.